What's up, guys? Let's talk about Utopia. First of all, can we all just agree that Utopia delivered on the hype? Is that something that we're all on the same page about? Because I feel like we're in a time when albums just don't last. But the continued success this album has been seeing after just 5 weeks, it's really unique. Staying at #1 for so long, being Travis's longest #1 album his whole career so far, selling 500,000 units in its first week, 330 million streams in its first week. It's already moved 1.5 million units in 5 weeks. It's been a huge commercial success. It is literally one of the best-selling rap albums of the last 5 years. It's the first rap album to stay at #1 for 4 weeks since 2018, since Astroworld came out. It's the first rap album to stay at #1 for over a week in over a year. So in that way, I think Utopia really did deliver on the hype. Because look, any artist can disappear for years, build a bunch of hype, and rocket to #1, but if the album really isn't that great, let's say if it's unfortunately Lil Uzi's Pink Tape, if it's an album that I just got bored of after a week, it's just not gonna last. But Utopia did really well. It sold 95% as many units as Astroworld did in its first week, which is pretty crazy after a 5-year break, especially because Travis has been putting out some pretty bad features and songs for the last few years. And honestly, after all that, I really wouldn't have been surprised if Utopia ended up being a boring autopilot mess. But what we got instead was a chaotic, hungry, cinematic masterpiece of a project. People keep saying that hip-hop is done, that the entire genre is doomed. For all of 2023, this whole topic keeps coming back up, no one likes rap anymore. But I think people still like good, memorable albums that come with a cohesive, interesting sound and songs full of memorable, creative choices. I just think a lot of mainstream rappers aren't delivering that anymore. Drake is the king of rap right now, but he's also one of the more boring artists around. Kendrick Lamar's album basically flopped, unfortunately, even though it was really good. Kanye's not dropping anymore. A lot of the upper echelon of hip-hop is gone, so obviously the commercial side of it isn't going to be in its best moment right now. But it's been a month and I'm still listening to Utopia. And honestly, that's a lot longer than I keep listening to most new albums. For the most part, new albums stay in my rotation for a few days at most. I'm not going to name names, but yeah, a lot of things get stale quickly these days. For the past few years, there haven't been a lot of mainstream albums that go on to become pop culture icons, the same way as albums were 5 or 6 years ago. Kendrick's Damn, Igor by Tyler the Creator, The Life of Pablo. These genuinely interesting, momentous, huge albums, they don't really exist anymore. There are a lot of great songs that drop. There are a lot of artists that I like their style, but for the most part, the good albums are getting lost. For the most part, the good albums are in the underground, to the point where I wonder, how long can I even keep Volksgeist going? Because I feel like at this point, I'm on the verge of running out of music to talk about. I've always wanted to discuss the quality side of mainstream music. I haven't wanted to really cover that much underground stuff, but I don't want to keep talking about music from 2018 forever, because that era of music is over. But at the same time, artists have stopped making albums that are worth talking about. So sometimes I definitely feel like Volksgeist could just end because I don't have anything to say anymore. Like, these artists just keep making albums with some good songs, but no real album experience to talk about, appreciate, or analyze. My point is, Utopia is the opposite of that. This is one of the first times in years that a mainstream artist has made something I actually have something to talk about, something I keep coming back to and appreciating in different ways. So let's just get into what I've started to appreciate differently from when I first heard the album a month ago, how my favorite tracks have changed over time, how I feel about the production, the storytelling. What are my final thoughts now that I've been listening to this project for a month? And does it even compare to Travis's other albums? The first thing I want to talk about is the track list, because I think I've had some major opinion changes since I first reviewed it. So let's just get into it. Hyena, the intro, this amazing sample-based production, great delivery from Travis. It's like an inverted, exotic, upside-down acoustic version of Stargazing, and I can't imagine a better intro for Utopia. This song is a huge W. I absolutely love it. And in the same way, Thank God has great bars. The second half of the song feels a lot like Donda with the strings and Travis's personal rapping with themes of family and religion, while the first half also kind of feels like Donda, but in a good way. I absolutely love this track. Modern Jam is a whole new direction and idea for Travis. The beat is super loud, but it's minimal and dancey, and Teezo Touchdown adds this wild art pop flair on top of a piano melody that feels straight out of some 1970s, 1980s David Bowie or Elton John track in a creative way. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that one of the Daft Punk guys produced part of this track, which only makes sense considering how dancey and polished and stylish it is. My Eyes is straight up ripped from a non-existent Frank Ocean album in every way, down to the technical crew. Even the mixing engineer on this track is the guy who mixed Blonde, but it somehow turned out out perfect with the contributions from Vegyn, Bon Iver, Sampha, with this really amazing, swirling, chaotically layered instrumental, and Travis's introspective lyrics that I haven't gotten tired of yet. God's Country is short and sweet with that crazy vocal sample. Sirens is just this crazy cacophony of sounds and samples. Again, it emphasizes Utopia's dark yet clean sound with little hints of industrial, creative samples and very memorable lyrics from Travis. These first few tracks are just a wild ride. It feels like a lot of energy is built up in this first half of the project with these songs, and they all have a distinct, memorable, yet equally hard-hitting, powerful sound. From the unique tone of modern jam that I think is so exciting to the beauty of My Eyes, it's about as experimental as a mainstream pop rap album could possibly be. And all of these ideas are executed great. These songs have been played in my car so many times, I can't wait to hear them live. But unfortunately, in the months since this album came out, I've only gotten more confused as to why Meltdown and Fiend are the most popular tracks from Utopia. I just don't get it. These feel like songs that Travis and his team were essentially forced to make out of an obligation for sales goals or features. Especially Meltdown is just a huge snooze of a song. Drake's verse is cringe, it's just fake hard. Ugh. Fiend is fine, but I don't think it's that great. I really like Carti's verse, but the song feels repetitive and just a little bit too much for me. The second half of Utopia to me, though, is really interesting. I think Meltdown and Fiend are a low point in the middle, but there are some really high highs, but also some pretty forgettable stuff in the second half of this project. I'm really surprised that Del Resto with Beyoncé didn't become more popular. It's actually number 14 or 15 out of 19 in terms of Spotify streams. I think it's crazy that it's just sitting at the bottom like that. It feels like a modern take on Hold My Liquor from Yeezus with a very similar story and structure, and obviously Bon Iver being on this track and also being on Hold My Liquor only adds to the similarities. Beyoncé's part is beautiful, and funny enough, I did notice that this is one of the only references to Houston at all that Travis put on this album. Even though Astroworld had that very noticeable influence from Houston hip-hop, Utopia leaves a lot of that behind. I hope Del Resto takes off later though, because I absolutely love this track, especially the little interlude or bridge in the middle with Travis rapping. I also thought that I Know is a beautiful track that I keep coming back to for the creepy lullaby, eerie production technique. One of the biggest things I've changed my mind about since this album dropped is the track Topia Twins. When I first heard this track, I was like, oh, this is generic and boring and blah, blah, blah. The beat isn't that great, but I've actually ended up loving this song. Yeah, the beat is still nothing special. It's like a who what. It's really not that great. It's just a trap beat that they put on here to add another song. But Travis's flow on this song is great. And secondly, Rob 49, the featured artist who starts the song with a crazy verse, he's this rising rapper from Louisiana. He's never had a big placement like this before, but I actually went into his albums and mixtapes and I realized he's a really creative artist with a lot of good songs. He ended up becoming one of my favorite artists for the last month, and I've been listening to all of his music. I think you should all definitely check him out. I mean, a lot of people don't like him. They're saying that he doesn't rhyme anything in his verse. He just yells into the mic, but I think it's cool.
Yeah, lamb truck starts like it about the bus. Try to shoot, but I just bulletproof the truck. Yeah, me and Logic back the
In a way, this reminds me of Astroworld with Don Toliver on Can't Say. Travis just picked this artist a lot of people I've never heard of and threw him on the album. He gave him a lot of positive exposure that he definitely deserves, and it came out perfect. One song I really never went back to though is Circus Maximus with Swae Lee and The Weeknd. I think even though these features are huge, it's just really not that interesting. I think The Weeknd's verse was whatever. It just didn't click with me at all. Obviously Mike Dean's synths and the outro and the song structure, the organs, blah, blah, blah. It's cool, it's big budget, but the verses, the lyrics, it just didn't do anything for me. I can't even remember how the flows sounded to begin with. But Paracel, though, is just so cool to get a more experimental, quiet, thoughtful, detailed track on a mainstream album, plus Young Lean finally getting his respect. Yes, it's the least streamed track on Utopia, but I'm still really happy that they included it. It's not much more than an interlude, but it's beautiful, and I wish it lasted even longer. Travis's auto-tune mix sounds great, and I think he could make some amazing songs in this style alone. Schizo is this kind of stupid long song, but the beat switches and the flows are top tier. I just wish they kind of split it up for easier listenability, but especially the last part of this song feels so bouncy and punchy. I almost always skip forward just to hear that part. Lost Forever is another kind of deeper cut that I'm really glad Travis included, even though it's been leaked for over a year now. This track is very uniquely creepy with a vocal sample, the deep booming drums, and hypnotic dreamy sound during Travis's verse. But what's even crazier is the Westside Gunn feature. Westside Gunn gets like half the song, and it's really cool to hear him bring bringing his more niche, unique rapping style into the song on top of the big, booming cinematic drums. Sadly though, I think Love with Kid Cudi, it's a huge skip. Modern Kid Cudi just doesn't really do anything for me anymore, and unfortunately the same goes for K-pop. For some reason, I do like this song, but I only like it like 1 out of 4 times that I hear it. Most of the time it comes on, I'm completely neutral towards it. I don't think it's that great. But speaking of being neutral, you should stop being neutral on my channel and subscribe right now and cop a Volksgeist t-shirt at volksgeist.store right now. Okay, listen, go buy the shirt. It's $34. It comes in 4 sizes. It has free shipping in the US. Telekinesis, though, is an instant classic song. I think this obviously just shoots right to the top of best songs Travis Scott's ever been on, but I think it could have been even better if Future wasn't on it. Nothing against his voice, but his lyrics about hoes and money, it just doesn't really match the emotional performances from Travis and SZA. But still, this is an amazing song that builds and builds until SZA gets the most beautiful verse of the entire project. Truly, it's a legendary Travis song already. The backstory of this being originally made for Donda, undergoing all these changes to become what it is today, it's just amazing. Till Further Notice is an epilogue for Utopia with these different pieces coming together. James Blake falsetto being used as a piece of the beat, 21 Savage's verse about heartbreak, but I really can't decide if it feels like a worthwhile song to have on the project at all. After the beauty of Telekinesis, it does feel overshadowed to a degree, but it's definitely still good. I just can't really tell what the point of having this track on there was. So overall, I feel like Utopia is mostly great. There are a lot of songs on here that I still love. I've been listening to them for a month now. I'm not tired of it yet. It's holding up as an interesting project with real musical substance. I think because of that, it's exactly what it needed to be. It has mass appeal with some deep-ish cuts. It's about as reasonably experimental or deep as you could get on a project this insanely commercial. It's a mainstream pop rap trap album that has some unexpected moves without being too obscure. It has some personal themes without being too narrow. A lot of Travis's fans understandably just didn't like his last era. It was extremely creative, but it was also extremely commercial, to the point of losing some of the rough edges that made his earlier career interesting in the first place. In Utopia, it brings a lot of that strangeness and darkness back. It's a good album experience, and again, Travis's public perception just wasn't in a place where he could make another massive theme park album. Coming off everything his career has been through in the last few years, Utopia had to at least play with the idea of being deeper and darker, and it did. And because of that, it ended up being a huge success. Within 2 weeks of this project dropping, Travis Scott became the first rapper to ever pass 75 million monthly listeners on Spotify. So it's not a flop. Not at all. The diversity of sounds on here is great. In my opinion, I love it. I really can't pin down one overarching consistent sound beyond the idea that a good few of these songs like Thank God or Sirens feel like they could have been put on Donda, production and lyric wise. And even the fact that Telekinesis and God's Country are literally outtakes from the Donda era, but that's the closest comparison I can make. But honestly, this album's production is overall a lot more interesting than anything on Donda. Donda was a little too long and the production got pretty stale after a while. But moments like Parasail, Lost Forever, My Eyes, Modern Jam, Hyena, Del Resto, I Know. Basically, a good half of Utopia is full of some of the most interesting, entertaining beats I've heard in a long, long time. Almost every song on this record has something to talk about. It's very well directed. It feels like a real blockbuster album with almost no wasted time, almost no filler. For me, the only track I would say is filler is probably the Kid Cudi song, but I know that might be just my opinion. I do think Travis's verse is pretty good, but it's not the greatest track overall. But for the most part, the album is full of unique sounds, new ideas, great flows, great lyrics. For what it is, it's great. No, I know it's not gonna satisfy the ultra picky, pretentious pitchfork music nerds, but I do agree there are real criticisms that apply against an album like this. No, I'm not a fanboy, so of course I can criticize it too, because there are valid criticisms of Utopia. First of all, look, Travis Scott, not a lyricist. I mean, he comes up with a few good one-liners, good flows, but the percentage of memorable lyrics with meaning on Utopia is what, like 20%, 15%? 10%? There are entire songs on here where the lyrics feel like nothing more than a vessel for Travis's melodies and auto-tune and flows. It's just nonsense words that sound good because of the way he sang them. So I just don't read into Travis Scott lyrics. It's not even that. There's really nothing to read into. It's a little strange how over the years, Travis hasn't improved the quality of his writing at all. And even considering how his fan favorite songs, the cult classic Travis Scott tracks, the best songs of his whole career, they're tracks that do have better writing. Coffee Bean, 90210, Astro Thunder, things like that. These are the most personal cult classic songs Travis has made, but I'm surprised he didn't emphasize that or make it a goal to include those themes more on the project. There are good verses on here. I think Modern Jam is pretty memorable, even if it's really simple. Thank God is very personal. very nice. Schizo has great bars. My Eyes is one of the realest songs he's ever made. Parasail, very poetic. But other than that, even on the other standout songs, the lyrics are just words that sound good while Travis raps. And if that's something that leaves you feeling underwhelmed, I understand that people might see Travis Scott as a fake or just consider him not that talented, not that creative, not that deep. For me, I don't care. I like the vibes. I like how the music makes me feel, because at the core of it, there's a cost to making music this big and making it this good. Yes, other people write better lyrics. Yes, other people rap better. Yes, other people have better voices. Yes, other people use different styles of production. But who else makes music this sonically interesting? Who else makes album experiences this good? But more importantly, who else makes music this popular that's listened to by so many people at the same time? I think there's something uniquely valuable in making art with mass appeal. Yes, there are tons of rappers who make deep, fascinating, interesting albums, but just lack the mass appeal to be considered iconic in pop culture. There are a lot of people who write better than Travis Scott, who produce better, who tell better stories, who rap better, and find better samples, or whatever. But that's not the point of his music. The point of his music is to bring unique, interesting ideas to the top of the pyramid in the music industry, to make as big of an impact as possible while keeping his own style. And I just don't see anything wrong with that. It's not a new idea that the most popular music of any given era isn't actually the best music of that era. For music enthusiasts, you know, like us, anyone who's actually watching this video, a lot of us would rather listen to a Westside Gunn album than any artist who has 10 times the amount of listeners as him. Or even artists that are more underground than that. Billy Woods, Standing on the Corner, obscure artists that have 0.3% as many monthly listeners as Travis, 0.1% of the Instagram following. In a lot of ways, those artists make music that's more pure, deeper, and better than the top pop, trap rappers, and that's always been the case in the music industry. People who are really passionate about 60s, 70s rock music, they're gonna tell you Pink Floyd, despite being universally beloved and considered amazing, record-breakingly popular, they're gonna say, oh yeah, Pink Floyd, they're overrated as hell. They're not nearly as good as the XYZ rock band who are way less popular but had a better guitarist or made better albums. But ultimately, how much does it really matter? Like, seriously. Who makes some of the most iconic albums ever? Whose album covers are pop art masterpieces? Whose lyrics are still in circulation to this day? Pink Floyd. No one gives a fuck about fucking who still thinks about whatever. I don't even know. That's what lasts. Pop art, pop culture icons, that's what lasts. And a lot of the time, they're good enough. Listening to and appreciating music is not about spending years cultivating a niche appreciation for things that other people just don't understand. Popular music can be good enough. And I've personally delved deep enough down the music rabbit hole to have my favorite hip-hop artists be so obscure that they wouldn't get noticed on the street by anybody. I get it. And yes, because of their obscurity, their music is in a way more pure than mainstream rappers, but they don't reach icon status. Because the deeper you reach towards quality, the harder it is to make something with mass appeal. The more mass appeal, the harder it is to make your music deep. But I think that's what makes Travis Scott special. His music is huge, it's commercial, but it's also good at the same time. And that's a very difficult position to get to. I think now Travis Scott is and always was 45% quality, 55% mass appeal. What he understands is the great album experience, the musical journey, the detailed song structure, interesting production, hit songs. He's one of the best alive at all of those things, but his storytelling, his lyricism, the personality in his music, it's not the best. I could easily just pick some random verses from Utopia and just show you guys how kind of dumb they are, but none of them are even memorable enough for me to think of any right now. But when Pitchfork goes and gives Utopia a 5 out of 10 and they say that the hollow spectacle of Utopia is not enough, I just roll my eyes. Why does there have to be an objective standard to which music is held that can only be reached by people who choose to not be commercial? Why can't an album be good because it sounds good? Travis Scott curates interesting sounds. He creates song structures that are gripping and entertaining. He crafts iconic albums by bringing together a whole different team of producers, artists, and writers and engineers who can use their unique talents to create a finished product that no one could do alone. And Travis himself is a good producer too. It's not like he got to this point by having all the work done for him. That's why I feel like it's unproductive to go into Utopia and be like, yeah, it has some shallow lyrics. Travis is a bad rapper. He's washed. This is normie music. It's a 5 out of 10 or whatever, because Utopia isn't my favorite album. No Travis Scott album would ever be my favorite. They don't speak to who I am as a person, but they're some of the most iconic albums of our generation, which is literally, by definition, a one-of-a-kind accomplishment. Travis, at this point, is one of the most successful trap artists ever, even more so than his contemporaries like Future or Thug or Lil Baby, not because he has the best voice or the best lyrics or anything, but because he prioritized that album experience, merging experimental-ish ideas with mainstream sounds. So I know he's not the best. You know he's not the best. We all understand he's not the best. But how much does our niche, obscure opinion and our stupid little overly pedantic specific standards of quality, how much does that really matter if Travis's music is what's lasting for years? How much does it really matter if he continues to chart for years after the albums drop? How much does it matter if his music has become a pop culture icon in itself and it's leaving a real legacy? As trap music leaves the mainstream, he remains. That's his talent. No, his talent isn't lyricism, rapping, flows, ideas, storytelling. His talent is making music that everyone fucking loves. I think Utopia basically lived up to the expectations. Even if it's not the deepest album ever made, it's ambitious, it's fun, a little introspective, dark yet exciting at the same time, extravagant, cinematic, all those adjectives. It looks forward, it pushes for something new. No, it's not a boundary-pushing trendsetter, but it's something new, and the album is just good. I like it. But, of course, the most important question of all, how does Utopia compare to the rest of Travis's projects? I think for me, it's pretty similarly as good as Astroworld, honestly, maybe even a bit better, but they're pretty similar. Diverse production, a journey through Travis's world. It's just that Utopia is a lot more introspective and stranger, while Astroworld was brighter and psychedelic. It is an evolution of a sound, and it works pretty well. But how does it fit into the last few years of hip-hop? For me, it's already one of the best mainstream albums that's come out in years, and I think it will stay that way. It's been a long time since people have liked something this much. Comparing it to other big blockbuster projects, Mr. Morale was a brilliant record, but it fell off quickly. Whole Lotta Red was way less palatable than this. Donda, Certified Lover Boy, these were both hugely hyped, but a little bit bloated and really not that great, especially Certified Lover Boy. Call Me If You Get Lost was quite good, and so was SOS by SZA. Those were both actually instant classics for me. And I really liked Future's last album, but it didn't really last that long for anyone, I feel like, except for me. So truly, for the last 3 or so years, a lot of albums have been just good enough, but not that great. Even more so because so many artists from Travis' generation, like A$AP Rocky, Frank Ocean, they haven't made music in even longer than Travis, and their impact, their icon status is slowly disappearing as time passes. Most albums nowadays have a few good songs, but no real concept, no real theme, nothing that makes them a cohesive work of art. Young Thug's Business is Business. It came out 2 months ago. It's already sitting underneath XXX's last album on the Billboard 200. The instant massive success of Utopia is it's proof that 1, Travis can still make good records, but also 2, that people still want to hear good hip-hop albums if the artist is willing to prioritize making creative choices over quick streams. But the truth is, there aren't a lot of those left. In conclusion, Utopia is pretty good. I liked it when it dropped, I still like it now. End of story. I'm Philip, this is Volksgeist, and I'll see you guys later. And like I mentioned earlier, I think the most important part of becoming a skilled creator or artist is building real skills. In my opinion, good ideas are important, but the skills to execute them are even more so. That's why Skillshare is one of the only sponsors I'm willing to work with, because sure, sponsors are great, but to me the most important thing is that I can offer something of real value to my viewers. And Skillshare is a service that I've been using for years. I've had my own class with them, and to this very day, I've been on their site regularly, learning more about graphic design, photography, video production, and even animations. As a self-taught person, I've done a lot of learning on the internet, and I can say hands down through the years, Skillshare has paid for itself 20 times over. So if you're at all like me, someone who wants to direct their own career and do creative work, I think Skillshare could be a great resource for you. Another great thing about Skillshare is that they have hundreds of career-focused classes as well, with the goal of not just teaching you how to do something, but how to apply it to larger life goals like financial stability, new career options, and even classes on how to do freelancing and be your own boss. And in my mind, these are all important things for anyone who wants to become a capable creator and use their talents to make money or reach new levels of creative output. Most importantly of all, I have my own class on Skillshare where I share all of my most used animation techniques that make Volksgeist possible, with a full beginning to end breakdown of my methods. I'm really proud of this class. I think it gives a great look into how I make videos, and of course, it's just one of thousands of Skillshare classes that can teach you all sorts of new creative skills and lessons in every area, from animation to video editing to photography to music production and so much more. I think Skillshare is just one of the best ways for people who want to control their own learning to get great, meaningful lessons from experts, and best of all, they're offering a free trial for my viewers. So go get a free trial to Skillshare, support my channel, check out the Volksgeist class, and dive into the thousands of great classes on so many different subjects. So if you want to check out Skillshare, the first 1,000 people to click the link below get a 1-month free trial. And as always, your support is greatly appreciated, and I will see you very soon.